Morning, everyone. Good morning. Some excitement going on today. It's a Wednesday though, so I understand. So before we get started today, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we all have an understanding of what's going to be we're doing going forward. There are multiple different activities that we're doing in the course, which is what makes this course exciting. It's not just me standing up here lecturing. Nobody wants that, and that includes me. And so I do want to make sure everybody knows what the responsibility are for the upcoming assignments and the activities we'll be doing. So let's talk about NetSuite. We're going to be doing NetSuite today, and this will generally be the first part of our Wednesday classes. It's going to be all day today, or at least as long as I continue talking, which is most of the day, most of the class period. At the end of the class period, you will have a deliverable assigned that is actually specified on Brightspace. You can see what the deliverable is. You cannot do the deliverable without actually doing the activity, but once you complete the activity, it should be pretty straightforward. It should be pretty easy for you to show what you've got. But yeah, today is just going to be a screen capture of all the work that we're doing to make modifications. You can do that and make that a submission at the end of class, and that's all done. It's not officially due till Friday, and the reason why is that if you don't complete it by the end of class and you need a little bit extra time, I give you that. Or if you have to miss class for some reason, then you get a couple days to make that up. But NetSuite, all the work should probably be done. If you show up for class, you should be able to complete all the work in class and get the submission done by the end of class, but there is a submission due. Generally speaking, we will do our homework review on Wednesdays. It's been deferred till Friday today because today's assignment's a little bit longer, but for homework, that is due at the beginning of class on Wednesdays or whenever it's assigned, usually Wednesdays, but in this case, it's going to be Friday. We will go through it in class and we'll talk about the answers. With regard to something that came up on this week's homework, and I think I knew about this, but I'd forgotten about it since it's been a year. You've been assigned problem number 4, and problem number 4 has got 3 parts, A, B, and C, but B doesn't actually have a question assigned with it. It just says, here's a statement, and my request is that if you've already answered and submitted, that's fine. If you haven't, just for B, say given or something like that, just to make sure that you've acknowledged the problem. If you go to A to C, my grader may just say, well, skip to part B, and then we have to have a long conversation about that. So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. So basically, you can handwrite and submit. You just handwrite and take a picture and submit that up to Brightspace, just as long as it's readable by Brightspace. I would be very careful to make sure if you do take a picture and upload it like that, you'd use a JPEG or another readable format. If you've got an Apple device, make sure you make the conversion because Brightspace does not read pages or other formats like that. But you can do whatever format you prefer. You just need to download or write down the questions, whether that be electronically or by hand, and make sure you upload that to Brightspace by the time class is fast beginning. So there are submissions for the homework assignments as well. Then on Fridays will usually be, we'll be doing Excel this coming Friday, so that will be an Excel activity. There is no deliverable due for the Excel activity. There are no points for the Excel activities. This is just basically to help you reinforce your Excel skills. I will test on some of these Excel activities that you will be doing. So I strongly recommend that you take notes as far as the Excel activities go. I'll give you some more details about what my expectations are. It's actually outlined in the study guide, and you can see examples of those in the practice exam. But yeah, the stuff we cover in Excel, no assignments associated with that, no deliverables, but you will be tested on it. And then finally, the AI activities, which are going to be starting next week on Friday. There's not going to be any exam questions over this. This is mostly for your own benefit to understand, to get a little bit more AI literacy. It may be relevant for your AI research project at the end of the semester, but strictly speaking, you don't need to take notes on those because I will not test you on those particular items. All right, so that's the distinctions I wanted to make on those. So NetSuite and homework, there are submissions. You will need to make sure you get those submissions done in a timely manner. Excel, no submissions, but there are questions on the exam about them. AI, just basically for your own benefit, no test exam questions, no notes required, no submissions required. Everybody good? All right, let's go ahead and do some NetSuite stuff. So a couple of things I would like you to do as far as this goes. So you may want to go to the Week 2 Content tab on Brightspace. I say may. You will absolutely need to go to the Week 2 Content tab on Brightspace. So there's a couple things that I want to point out here, and I'm not going to click on this because I don't want this to be on YouTube. I don't want people to see this. But if you click on this NetSuite default password, it will tell you what your beginning login password will be for NetSuite. So make sure you get that and either copy it somewhere like on a notepad or something like that, or copy it so that you have access to it. Again, I'm not going to show what the password is, but it is the same for everybody in the class. So that's one of it. You also might want to download this blank image file. I encourage you to do so. It will make things a little bit easier for us in the future. I'll explain why in just a second, but just it is literally a JPEG of nothing. And so why did I do that? I'll explain when we get to that point in NetSuite. The other thing that you're going to do, and I'm going to give you even less information on this, but you are going to click on your grades. I'm not going to click on grades because I don't want to share grade information in a public forum. But if you click on your grades, the very first grade should be a NetSuite login piece of information. It looks like an email address. There's actually a funny story behind this because this is not a legitimate email address. This is something that looks like an email address. YouTube cannot actually tell the difference between that because what I used to do is post everybody's name on there and then post the login information. I did that in the video, and YouTube accused me of cyberbullying. So I had to try to explain to the algorithm on YouTube, to the AI monitor, says, no, I wasn't cyberbullying. These are not real email addresses, but it had none of it. It said, nope, you violated our terms. We will not post this video. So that was an awkward conversation to have with my students to say that I apologize for cyberbullying, even though it wasn't really cyberbullying. So that is an email address that you will want to make sure. I say it is looks like an email address. It is actually your sign in for NetSuite, the one that you will use every single time. Okay. So you will want to make sure you have that sign in address here and that you have that copied. Really important for whatever your information is, please make sure that you get it down exactly. Do not change anything about that. These are sequential addresses, so you may notice there's a number in your address. If you take that number and you make slight adjustments to it, you will likely interrupt somebody else's address. Either that or you won't be able to log in. So make sure you get yours exactly down. Moving through this NetSuite activity, when I tell you that you need to record certain pieces of information, I strongly recommend you take that to heart because getting back into NetSuite after you've logged out and then you can't remember your password or something like that, it can be a real nightmare. And we don't really have protocols to actually address that because we are getting this donated to us basically by Oracle Academy. So they don't have reins on whether or not we can actually reset passwords or something like that. You will notice that because we're not using your own personal email addresses here at Truman State, that you will not have access to the email address we're going to put in. So it's really, really critical that you record all the information that we're going to be using. That being said, I failed to record a piece of information. So I'm going to pause the recording right here for myself. Okay, we're back. I've got the information I need now. That's the problem with getting older is you forget all the details that you really need. And there's a lot of little details that go into this. It looks like an easy job. It's only because I make it look easy. All right. It's only because I make it look easy. But and I do a much worse job of that every single year. All right. So let's start out. We're doing NetSuite. So we're going to go to netsuite.com. So everybody go to the netsuite.com in your browser. The wonderful thing about NetSuite is this is a browser-based ERP, and it's designed for small organizations to be able to do complex tasks. It is really kind of cool. We are going to scratch the surface of this. Like I said at the beginning of the semester, you are not going to be able to make the statement that you are an expert in this, but you will definitely be able to make the statement that you've got some experience with this. So that's something that you can add to your resumes and people will be really impressed with. I would not say expert level. I would say introductory or maybe even intermediate level once we get to that point. So click on login. And this is where you're going to go ahead and put in that email address that I told you to copy down from your grades. All right. So yeah. And then type in the password, which should be blanked out. All right. Once you get to the screen, go ahead and stop because we're going to have to talk a little bit about this real quick. We've got some really, this is although we're not testing on this information that I'm about to go over with you. This is the most important information that we're going to talk about right here. Because if you mess up this step, this is where things start to go afoul. This is where things run asunder. All right. So is everybody to this screen right here? Has everybody managed to log in? Raise your hand if you're not, because I don't want to move forward. Okay. Okay, just okay. We got plenty of time. Got plenty of time. Again, I didn't want to make a note of this. I am going to go through this slowly, but if I'm going too fast, please tell me to stop. falling behind on this stuff can lead to disaster, particularly for this stuff we're doing today. That's why we're dedicating the entire class session to this particular activity. This is all setup stuff, and if you miss a setup step, then it can create problems in the future. So I want to make sure everybody is on the same page and everybody's good to go. How are we looking back there? Good. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. So the very first thing we're going to do is going to choose the role. Now, I've already mentioned this already, what role we're going to be taking. Does anybody remember which one I said? We are going to be doing administrator. I want to make a note of this. So first of all, it's the third one down. Make sure you click on choose role and highlight the administrator. Do not click on a different role. If you click on a different role, we can fix that problem, but it's a little bit more challenging to fix. So let's get it all right the first time. So while I'm rambling, go ahead and click on administrator, choose role there. There's a real important reason that we're going to be doing administrator in this course is because this gives us access to all parts of NetSuite. Now, why am I mentioning it? This is something that may come up on the exam or may come up. The administrator has access to all parts of NetSuite. In a real ERP system, we would separate out user responsibility areas. So somebody who has responsibility for revenue process areas would not have responsibility for other parts of revenue process. They would not have a role in purchasing or in inventory management. So it's really important to define roles and responsibilities. That being said, we want a broad overview of all the things we can do in NetSuite, and the administrator privilege gives us that ability to do that. So that's why we're choosing administrator. In the real world, unless you've done systems and database administration, this is not a role that you would take. So it's really important that we select administrator, but it's also really important that we know why we would never really do that in reality. All right. So password, go ahead and type in your old password, and then you need to select a new password that tells you the password criteria. I strongly recommend that in addition to making sure that you do put in the password correctly, that you write this down somewhere so you don't forget this. Whether this be recording this electronically, writing this down by hand, or possibly both. Do not forget this password. This is your lifeblood.
The old password, just the one that got untrue.
Yes, that's the one that you're using because it's making an adjustment right now so that it's a unique password. So this is kind of a default step. All right. So if you've got your password criteria, it does a check for you. Make sure that those are all good. If you do not meet those password criteria, it will not allow you to enter those. Again, make sure you've got that password recorded somewhere so that you don't forget that. And once you've done that, you can click on submit. Now, the good news is at this point, if you've managed to get through this entire step, nobody else can log into your account. The bad news is if you've forgotten that password, you can't log into your account, okay? So next step is we're going to be doing a second two-factor authentication check. We've got security questions here. Now, yes. Sure. Uh-oh. Okay. So I'm just going to explain real quick what we're going to be doing here. So the next step is we're going to be doing a multi-factor authentication check. Now, multi-factor authentication is similar to what we're doing for when you log into Microsoft tools here in Truman State, when you have to log an email or use a Microsoft tool. You know the dual mobile that you have to sign into? That's an example of multi-factor authentication. NetSuite has a little bit simpler process for our purposes anyway, that we're just going to be doing security questions. Now, the good news is that you probably will not be prompted for these security questions every time you log into NetSuite. However, you will likely be prompted anytime you log in from a terminal that it does not recognize. So if you decide to do some NetSuite activities at home, or if you do it, if you go multiple times in the class session here, you change terminals, or if you even are at the same terminal, but you do multiple sessions, say you like on your 5th or 10th session, I believe it will ask you to reiterate your security password. So remember I told you to write down your answers to your password. I told you to write down your password. Also, when you create these security questions, write down your answers to those and make a note. These answers do not need to be dynamic like passwords, but they are case sensitive, okay? So if you choose, yes. Oh, it says answer is not case sensitive. Okay, let's change that then. Okay, answers are not case sensitive. Answers are not case sensitive. Okay, it's good to know. But anyway, so again, select your questions and provide answers to that. That must have been a change because I know that they were case sensitive at one point. At least in my mind, they were. Now, I'm not going to show mine because I'm recording right now. So fingers crossed that I typed in my answers correctly. It may get a little bit awkward if I didn't. Um, you may want to reveal your own answers just to make sure you get them correct. But yeah, so hold on to those prompts and make sure you have them. Once you do, click on save. All right, how are we doing? Everybody feeling good here? My assumption is that when I'm done, most everybody else will be done because I type really, really slowly. Plus, I'm trying to teach at the same time. So it's like trying to walk and chew gum. It's very, very difficult trying to do that. All right, so we're at the home screen. This is going to be your default where you're going to be navigating to. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the home screen. Okay. So we're at the home screen. This is the default where we're going to be doing work from for the most part. You're going to find navigating back to this place quite frequently, particularly since we're going to set up our home screen to make navigation through the rest of NetSuite much easier. Now, I'm going to give you tips and tricks on how to navigate more easily. That being said, when I define a path for you to take, such as I'm going to tell you to go down a path, several paths here for our introduction activities today, I recommend that you make sure you make notes on how to get to that path because I may ask you in the future, in fact, I will for a third assignment, to replicate some of the things that we're going to be doing. You will need to know what path you need to take, and I will not be able to prompt you as easily whenever doing that. So if I give you a path, make sure you know it. Otherwise, you can just kind of use the shortcuts that we're going to develop here shortly. That will come obvious as we get further along. All right, we all ready to go? All right. So the very first thing we're going to be doing is we are going to go ahead and check some information here. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner, everybody in this room should be Catherine Glass, okay? OAERP Basics Administrator. So let's confirm that that's the case. If your name does not say Catherine Glass, that means you probably did not click on the administrator role, and we need to make a change to that. But hopefully everybody did that because that was one of the things that I emphasized important. Now, to my knowledge, nobody in this room is named Catherine Glass. And if I'm wrong about that, then that'll be the first time that I've had a Catherine Glass in place. This is going to be one of the important changes that we're going to have to make for our assignment. But let's just go ahead and make sure that we do some adjusting before we make that change right now. So the very first thing what I'd like for you to do is I'd like you to go over here to this home icon and just hover above it right now. If you click on this home icon, it will take you back to this screen, which, like I said, this is going to be our navigation center point. This is going to be where we're going to be a lot of the time. A lot of the time, it's just going to be easier to navigate back to the home screen and then click on a shortcut to get to where we want to go. But let's click on Set Preferences. And there are a couple things that I like for you to do. One thing I absolutely want you to do, and one thing you can do if you're feeling a little bit whimsical, okay? So this is where we can change default details within our NetSuite. So one thing I would like for you to change, just because we are not in GMT 008, I would like to go ahead and change this to Central Time because that's where we're at. So click on Time Zone and go to GMT Central Time, US and Canada. GMT Greenwich Mean Time -6 hours. Now, you may say this is not going to make sense, Dr. Barnes, because later on, you're going to notice that I'm going to have you set some things to California, which makes absolutely zero sense because if we're setting things to California, we should be on Pacific time. Just ignoring that, we're going to make NetSuite set up as if we're in Central Time, but we're still going to make activities as if we're on the West Coast. And there's a reason for that. It's because all the activities are defined on West Coast locations. But I do want our times to be consistent with what we're actually experiencing in the here and now, right here, right today. Another thing I would like to do, this is in the General tab. So if we notice that there's several sub tabs up here, we can do a lot of different changes over here. So let's click on the Appearance subtab. And I'm going to change my color theme because we're at trim and state. I'm going to change it to purple. If you want to change it to another color, that's fine. But I do try to like represent trim and state whenever I can. Yes. This is going to change the color of the bars right here that we're going to see. But it will only do that once we actually save the activity. So if you change the color theme to basic purple and click on save, we should go ahead and do that. Voila, what a change. This is your tuition dollars at work. I showed you how to change the color of the bars within NetSuite. What'd you learn in AIS today? Nothing much. All right. Trust me, the exciting stuff comes later, but we do want to talk a little bit about this. So let's go ahead and let's set up our home screen to make navigation a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this personalized drop-down menu and click on that. And you're going to notice it opens a window. Now, some of these we can set up. We've got a few that we definitely want to set up, but let's just go ahead and select a few that I think might be relevant here. So if you'll notice here that some of these are not highlighted and some of them are grayed out. Some of them have multiple options for grayed out. We can actually create multiple windows for this. So we can kind of see, like, look and see where it says reminders is grayed out. If I scroll down a little bit, I should be able to find a reminders window down here. Let's see. There, it's right up here. I didn't have to scroll down at all. So let's go ahead and select a few that might be relevant to us. Here's what I'd like you to do, and let's do this in order because I want to put these in a certain sequence. So let's go ahead and click on calendar. And you'll notice when you do that, it created a calendar window right over here. Then let's go over to the right a little bit. So there's an arrow in the window that you should be able to click on and go to the right and select key performance indicators. And that should pop up right down here, which we don't have any KPIs right now, but that's okay. Now, if you didn't get those, that's fine. These next two, I think, are very important. I do think these next two are very important. So I think it's over to the right here. I could be wrong. Nope, it's to the left. My apologies. Over here, where it says recent records, should be right below calendar. This is one that I think is going to be very important for us. So let's go ahead and click on recent records. And you'll notice this should have popped up right over here on the left. And while we're at it, let's go select back to the right. Let's find shortcuts and click on that. And so shortcuts should have been created down here. Now, the ones that we really desperately need, the ones that we're going to be utilizing throughout this course are going to be recent records a lot, and then shortcuts occasionally. So once you've got those set up, go ahead and close this personalized window. You can just click on the X right here and it shuts down. And even if you don't have calendar and key performance indicators, I do want to make sure that recent records and shortcuts are right here at the top of the window for you. If they're not, either you did not click on the recent records correctly or they appeared somewhere else up here. Make sure you can drag them and pull them to the top, because if you go to these windows, you can match and move them wherever you want. And I want recent records up here on the left and shortcuts over here on the right. Everybody good? All right. Now we're going to change our name, and we're going to change a few things as well. So this is the first time where I'm going to show you navigation. Now, whenever I tell you to highlight something, when I tell you to highlight or move your mouse over it, do not click immediately and do not click until I tell you to click. This is one of the things that gets really, really challenging. In some computers, like if you're working on a computer outside a lab, it may be even more challenging. It can get really, really hairy and messed up, but this should be pretty easy for the computer lab. So let's go ahead and go to lists. Once you highlight lists, go down to employees. And then I want you to highlight the employees that pops up over to that. And don't go over to new or search, just click on employees itself. So lists, employees, employees. And I don't know for certain that we're going to make any other modifications to employees, but you might want to make a note of this, that this is one of those paths that I was telling you about, making sure that you can note that this is how we get to that path. All right. So you should have a list of several employees in our organization. What we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to find Catherine Glass. Which her internal ID is -5, which I don't know what that means. That seems really, really weird. So can anybody guess what we're going to do here? We're going to change it to our name. All right, change it to our name. So let's go ahead and click on edit next to Catherine Glass. And it may take a second. I noticed my computer tends to take longer than other computers to get there, but if you click on edit, it should come up. And now the Zoom window is getting in the way. Cursed Zoom window. All right, so what are we going to be doing here? Well, if you'll notice here that it auto gives you the employee ID, but that's based on what name is. So you can probably guess what the name is going to be. It's going to be your name. So give me your first name and your last name. If you want to put a middle initial, fine. No judgment. I'm just going to give you first and last name. Yes, I would prefer not. I don't think it'll actually create an issue. I think it's just an apostrophe, isn't it? Okay, I don't think it. I think in NetSuite probably would adapt to it, but let's just go ahead and stick it without it right now. So if you typed in your name properly, it should also give you initials. Everybody good there? So this is really important to do this step at least to make sure your name, because once we've actually done here, it's going to adjust this name up here and it's going to have the name and company. Yes. Yes. List employee. Then you have a list of all the employees. Find Catherine Glass and click edit next to Catherine Glass. No, just on where it says employees. While we're here, I'm going to do something kind of fun to show some adaptivity, because I did this the very first time I worked in NetSuite and I've enjoyed it. So I'm going to change my job title, because controller is just really kind of, man, it's really, really sterile. So I'm going to change mine to accounting hero. You don't have to change this. This is just one of those whimsical things I like to do, just for fun in NetSuite, because this kind of gets a little bit boring and tedious at times. So trying to make it entertaining where it can be. So the most important thing is to change your name here, because once we've actually made all of our updates in NetSuite, we're going to have it to where this is actually updated to your name and your company. But so in order to have that, by the way, please do not put Michael Barnes as your name. I'm going to be grading you on whether or not the person who submitted it actually matches the name up here. So please put your name. I know it's more exciting to put like Johnny Danger or something like that, or something like that. I couldn't come up with a good name. But I would prefer that it has your name, because I want to make sure that it's consistent and that you did the activity, so I know it's your name. So that's why I'm asking you to put your name up here. So once you've done that, go ahead and click on save. Okay. We're going to make a quick adjustment here. So let's just go ahead and we're going to make an image adjustment. What I'd like for you to do is I'd like you to go to Documents, Files, and File Cabinet. The same thing, just click on the word File Cabinet. So Documents, Files, and File Cabinet. And this is a very useful link for us, because this allows us to make changes to certain areas of the system with respect to documentation and the defaults there. We have one very specific activity. Now, if we had letterhead template, we could actually make the changes here. That kind of functionality has kind of been erased from NetSuite. So what we're going to do is we're just going to actually make a change to the template that's listed. So click on the word images over on the left. As we're going to find out, you all are going to be submitting a lot of individual documents to prove that you've done work in NetSuite. Every single document this company is currently set up for has a background of the US flag, okay? Now, I'm a Boy Scout, okay? Literally, I was an Eagle Scout. I was a Boy Scout. I have great respect for the US flag. I do not particularly appreciate it on the back of an invoice, okay? It is gaudy and it makes it very, very difficult to read. So we're going to do something. There's a few things that we could do. We could change all of our document forms to actually have a different background. That could be a challenge for us to do, though, because we're going to be doing a lot of different documents and we may miss some. What I would prefer for you to do is just to change the template background for the US flag. So click on US flag and click on edit next to US flag. My apologies, not US flag, but the edit. It may lead to the same place, but I want to click on edit. Here's what it looks like. Again, No disrespect to the stars and stripes, but it's not something I want to read on an invoice. All right. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to choose file. And remember that blank file that I had you download from Brightspace? I'd like for you to put that one in its place. So for me, I've got this located in my Y drive on the AIS folder. And it looks like I actually have an example of what this looks like without the changes. So just to show you, here's kind of what the document looks like if you don't take off the US flag. That's the default. Yeah, so all of your documents would have that on there. That's how I can know that you did not do this activity, is that's what all your documents will look like. Will I grade points off if you do that? No. It's just really, really hard to read through that. It's just very, very hard because it covers the background. It's not like a small little symbol. It's the entire document, okay? So go ahead and click on blank or select blank, choose that file blank and upload that. I would really appreciate it if you do this and then click on save. And it's going to ask you, do you really want to continue? And the answer is yes. And now you'll notice that we've got a much simpler file right here. This is going to be our default background, which is much easier. Not nearly as fun or as exciting, but sometimes you got to dial back the fun and excitement. Sometimes you got to cut it back a little bit. All right. Now we've already changed our company name. We've already changed some things. Now, by the way, we can actually, I didn't mention this, but you don't need to navigate back here, but I do want to show you one thing. So you can make a lot of different adjustments here. I think that my name is now listed as Michael Barnes. Yes. Which actually has options for additional information. By the way, please do not change your email address down here. This is a really important one to leave in case, because this is how your sign-in is. You could, however, change the JPG that it actually has for your NetSuite, which I don't think it's relevant. We're not actually going to be doing the JPEG. But if you're curious what Catherine Glass looks like, there's Catherine right there. Okay, stock photo. So I actually tried to make one so that I could upload just so I could have my photo, because I don't look really like Catherine, but I did my best impression of Catherine. So there we go. I think I did a pretty good job. Pretty good job. There's a noticeable difference, especially with the amount of volume of hair that one individual has versus the other. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's change our company. Change our company. By the way, you may notice that you've changed your name, but this is not updated, and that's fine. We'll get to that here in just a second. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do setup, company information. Now, again, I'm going to go through a lot of this, and there's a lot of things changed we're going to make. I'm going to make them quickly. If I need to stop and wait for you to catch up, that's fine. But there are a lot of things we need to change here. So first thing we need to do is change our company information. We're not going to be OA, Oracle Academy, ERP Basics. We're going to be a company name of your choice. And I always have the same company name I use. Now I'm going to make a note of this. Do not use my company name. It's mine and mine only, okay? You're going to have to use your own company name. If you want to use something boring like AIS company, I guess, go right ahead, okay? But you can't use my company name, because I always wanted to own a TCG store, so I'm going to do Team Clamps Cards and Games. It's actually got it defaulted there. It knows me. Change that to legal name as well. This is one of the forms that's actually going to have the US flag logo. Fortunately, we've made that change, so we don't need to change the logo. We could create a logo if it would appeared on there. If it was a small logo, we could compare that. I actually had a picture of a crab that I put on mine because Team Clamps, Anyway, yeah. We're going to leave all this default information listed up here, so we don't need to change any other information. We're going to leave the time zone for this particular one at 8, and we'll see why here in a second. What you need to do is change your company name. So again, by the time we're done, you will have a new user ID, which is going to be your name, and you will have a new company name, which will be the company name that you create. Those do need to be changed. If I see Catherine Glass, OAERP, or Basics in your assignment, you will not get credit for that assignment, but we'll make those adjustments here in a second. Now, there's some important things that we need to make changes to for future purposes, for things that are going to come outside of this course. We're going to update our headquarters address and our warehouse addresses. And there's a lot of changes here. The good news is that once you enter this information one time, the computer should pick up on it. You can actually click through pretty quickly. But we do need to enter this information to start. So down here where it says address, here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like you to click on edit. We can leave United States the same and headquarters the same. You need to change your addressee to your company name. Okay. So once you've done that, you can leave the phone number as default. The address, you can change if you want to. You can leave it that. 98 Professors Row is pretty good. I always have 101 Ison Avenue. Then we're going to change this to San Francisco as the city. Or San Francisco, as apparently I did one period. So San Francisco. Then we're going to change this to California because that's where San Francisco is. And the zip code we're going to use for all of these is going to be 94105. And you should notice that this address is updating over here as you enter this new information. So this is going to be your headquarters address. This will be somewhat distinct from our warehouse address that we're going to set up here in just a second. Now, it doesn't really matter what this information is, but it really is important that you have the company name as your addressee. Everything else is somewhat flexible, but it's really important that I would also encourage you to make sure you have it set up in San Francisco, simply because we're going to be operating out of the US West domain. And this will become really, really important once we start talking about what warehouses we're shipping from and to, and what companies we're doing business with. So again, I would encourage you to have at least the addressee adjusted and the city and state and zip adjusted to this. All right, once you've done that, click OK. Tell Google no thanks. We're also going to change the return address and the shipping address. Now, we can use very similar information, but we do need to use a separate address because our headquarters and our warehouse are located in different places. The good news is we're going to use the same warehouse address for both of these fields. So let's go ahead and click on edit. Just leave attention as warehouse manager. By this time, you should know your addressee is the same thing that you've just been entering. In all likelihood, it will auto-populate, especially if you're using Google Chrome. We can leave the phone the same. I'm going to set my shipping address to 202 Otero Drive. Thank you for the pity laugh. I do appreciate that. Oops. And then again, we're going to go to San Francisco, California, 94105. Now, if you've got that information entered, go ahead and click OK and put that same exact information into the return address, because we're just going to make returns all go to a warehouse. So your attention needs to be warehouse manager. Addressee is going to be your company. Phone number, you don't necessarily need to enter that, but they've got a default phone number, so I'm going to put that in there. Use the same address you used for your warehouse. San Francisco, California, 94105. Now I'm going to pause here because I'm sure that you all are still putting in information. And if you are, that's fine. What you should have when you're done is you should have a headquarters address that specifies this is going to headquarters, and a shipping and return address that goes to the warehouse and is specified to go to the warehouse manager. If you're in that position, good. If you're still catching up, that's fine. All we're going to be doing is updating some address information from this point forward. All right, everybody comfortable move forward? All right, so let's go ahead and change a little bit more at address information. This is a really critical step that we're going to need to know. We're going to change our subsidiary locations and our warehouse locations. So we're going to go to Setup, Company, and we're going to have to scroll down over here on the right. So once you highlight over here, you can either just bring your cursor down or you can use the mouse wheel, whichever one. When we come down to where it says classifications, right below classifications, click on subsidiaries. So setup, company, subsidiaries. Yes. Oh yeah, it's probably a good idea. My apologies. It probably, if you tried to click on that, it probably said, do you want to save the file? It's generally pretty good about that. So setup, company, subsidiaries. And again, you will have to scroll down a little bit to get there. Once you've got the subsidiaries, go ahead and click on that. All right. So we have some different subsidiaries set up. We are going to be doing all of our activity in this course through United States West. So let's go ahead and click on Edit next to United States West. Okay. So what we're going to do down here is, you note we've got some addresses that are listed down here in addresses. Does everybody remember those addresses we just created? Yeah, for the address that's listing up here, we're going to use our headquarters address, and then our shipping and return address are going to be our warehouse addresses. Exact same ones as we just did. So go ahead and click on Edit. Shouldn't take you any time at all. Go to headquarters, company name, use a phone number if you like. Click OK. Make sure that when you're doing this, if you'll notice real quick, that in the shipping address and probably the return address as well, that for attention, it's actually got the company name as attention. We want that to be warehouse manager. And we want our addressee to be the company name. Now, if you mess this part up, is it going to make a big difference? Probably not. We're just trying to do this for consistency purposes. The most important thing is that all of this information has your addressee as your company name, and that everything's going to San Francisco, California, 94105. The setup stuff's really exciting, I tell you right now. All right, once you've done that, go ahead and click on Save. Don't hear a lot of clicking going on, so I'm guessing most everybody's caught up. So let's just go ahead and go to the last step before we do our deliverable. So we also need to change our warehouse location. So let's go ahead and go to Setup, Company, and then once again, we're going to scroll down to even further down below we were. We're going to go to Warehouses. Once you get to Warehouses, go ahead and click on that. And we're going to be operating out of the US 1 warehouse, which predictably is going to be on the west coast. So go ahead and click on Edit next to US 1. Everybody want to guess what we're going to do? Yep. And this has got our warehouse address for both address and return address. Remember, these go to the warehouse manager, so the addressee should be your company name. Enter a phone number if you like, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. I guess you can make the argument that I kind of am the boss of you, but still. Let's do that for the return address as well, if you've not already done that. All right, so once you've got those addresses listed in, go ahead and click on Save. you're still working on those, it's fine. We have got one last step to be able to finish this activity. We have now set up our company, but you will notice Catherine Glass is still lingering up here. Something NetSuite is kind of inconsistent about is whether or not it will allow us to update information without, well, in the same session. The answer for this situation is probably not. So what we're going to do, we're going to log out. Then once we've logged out, we're going to immediately log right back in. And if you've done your job correctly, your name should be up here along with your company name saying that you're administrator. How are we doing? Everybody feel good about that? All right. Your deliverable for this particular assignment is a screen capture of this home screen, not just your name, not just that part, but it has to be the entire home screen. Screen capture of that. And then you're going to upload that to Brightspace. So there's a couple ways you can go about this. So first of all, does everybody know how to do a screen capture? Okay, if you don't know how to do a screen capture, the easiest way is just to hit print screen. And then you can select the entire screen and it will copy this into a separate window that you can copy and paste.
We got that download. Yeah, thanks.
What's that?
Do I press like control print screen or something?
No, just print screen should be fine. It should just automatically default. Does it not do anything? Okay, function print screen. I'm looking at my keyboard and I'm like, I don't know. I just hit print screen, but apparently it's different.
Function.
Yeah. There's a couple of ways you can go about this. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can go about this, but you can also do a snipping tool, which is one of my favorite tools. It's one of the things you can do in Windows. There's a lot of different ways. You can either save this as a JPEG or some other picture format that's readable, or you can copy and paste this into a Word document. Either one is fine because Brightspace is much better than our former LMS was. And you could submit this as your deliverable for the assignment for today. All I need is a picture showing that you set up your home screen according to our instructions with the recent records and shortcuts up here, and that your name up here and your company name is listed up here. All that details up there. Congratulations, you finished your first assignment in NetSuite and you are now 5 points wealthier. Once you have finished that screen capture and uploaded that to Brightspace, you are welcome to take leave for the day. I gave you a full extra minute today. So if you need additional time, this recording will be posted to YouTube so you can walk back on anything that you missed. But we will be doing homework on Friday, as well as our first Excel assignment. So I'll see you all then.
I think that